open fire cooking is another really interesting part of what you're doing that we didn't talk too much about. How does that different from cooking on the stove with a pot and a pan as most people are used to?
It's very different. I mean, I think that everyone should do it and should try it, because you'll learn so much more than you would cooking. If you follow a recipe, it's going to tell you like turn your oven on to 400, turn your burner to medium high heat. And so you can kind of like follow that recipe without ever tapping into like your cooking intuition. With open fire, you are basically engaged in like a constant dance with this like living, breathing thing that is changing all the time. It's like very volatile and capricious, and the wind could change it, or the outdoor temperature could change it. And so you have to cook with your instincts. You have to like feel the heat and decide if that's hot enough. You have to listen to the sounds. You have to look at what's happening in front of you. And I think that it's a really good way to cook, because it forces you to tap into those instincts and forces you to rely on them. And so I love it. I think it's like the best way to cook. And on top of that, it's just more flavorful. When you burn wood, you go from like, when you first start burning it, it's smoking. So you get a lot of smoke flavors. You can do different things with that. Then you get a flame. And then eventually it kind of collapses down into like charcoal. And that's where you get that really like very powerful, long lasting hot heat that you would want to like cook a steak over. All of those different processes release different compounds and release different flavors into the food. And just, the wood itself is like so full of these compounds and these flavors and the smoke, and all of that adds into the flavor of the food. And like, there's definitely like a whole movement in cooking that's all about like precision and kind of taking this very like sciencey approach to food. The Food Lab and J. Kenji Lopez Alt and the modernist cuisine guys. And, it's like these people got really into like, we're going to sous vide a steak, and then, we're going to sear it at this perfect temperature and all of that. And it's like, you can make good food that way, but there's a certain like soullessness to it. Whereas I would so much rather have a steak that's cooked over the open fire, gets all those flavors, even if it's not as like precise as what you can do with all this fancy equipment. There's a certain like energy that it takes on that is so much more exciting. And so I think when you cook with fire, you actually learn to value precision less than you would in a kind of like modern kitchen, but it ends up yielding a lot of really beautiful results.
So if someone were to want to get started with that, if they wanted to try and become like an Anthony Bourdain of the open flame, how would they begin? Would they just like light a fire and put like some meat on?
So I think the best way to start is to get a charcoal grill. That's like, charcoal is the perfect intro to open fire cooking. It's like if you want to do true open fire cooking where you're taking wood and burning it, that can take a while to do. It's not practical to like do on a weeknight. Whereas charcoal is like great. Like you can get a charcoal chimney, light up charcoal in 15 minutes and cook with it. And it gives you a lot of the like benefits and the experience of open fire cooking with way more ease of use. And so I tell people, like, if you want to get started with that, get a good charcoal grill, and start playing around with that. And then once you feel really comfortable there, then go for the actual like wood fire stuff. But you could learn a ton on charcoal. You could spend a year cooking on charcoal. And I love charcoal. There's a ton to learn there. And I think it's like the most accessible way to do it at home.
It's so funny because that would have definitely been the way that our ancestors would have cooked for eons. And most of us probably only have the experience of like maybe making s'mores or like roasting some weenies. And that's that's the extent of it.
No, I know. It's so true. And I also see people like, you have to learn how to cook with fire. Like you don't want to put a steak over like a flame, like it'll completely burn it. You want to actually cook you want to light a fire, get it ripping hot, and kind of have that wood collapse on itself to the point where it's kind of like these red hot coals. And that's going to give you this like really powerful heat that you can cook a steak over. But I see people like trying to cook food in a flame. And the thing is like a flame actually isn't that hot, and it's going to like char your food. So there's a lot to learn. Luckily with charcoal, Charcoal is basically a shortcut to get to those hot coals, and that's why it's really easy to cook on.
That makes sense. I was looking at it through like the s'mores angle, where like you need the flames kind of lapping it to like cook it. But I guess once it collapses down, you basically got a charcoal grill. Do you just put like the steak kind of right on top of that, or is there other tools?
I'll usually do a grate over those coals. When you're cooking food over charcoal, you kind of have like two factors to consider. One is how hot the actual coals are, and then the second is how far away from those coals your food is, right? So like you see the Argentine style grills are called Santa Maria grills, and those are ones that like go up and down. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they're on like a pulley system. And the reason for that is that, like, if you want to get a really good sear on the outside of a steak, you might put that grate really close to the flames, get it super hot. But then you want to lift it up and keep turning the steak to like get some gradual heat bubbling up from below to slowly cook it through.
That sounds much better than what I was imagining. Just like a piece of meat on a steak. It's just I feel like this is. Imagine something, yeah. This is sparking a lot of thoughts for what we could see with like a better food future, where we're tapping back into our roots and reconnecting with real flavorful food and the experience of cooking with community over an open flame, which in itself is a powerful technology for all kinds of things. So yeah, it's been great sort of hearing your story and you sharing your own personal passion and fire for this. So definitely have a reinvigorated sense of wanting to get in the kitchen, wanting to cook, wanting to share meals with friends and family. I hope everyone listening catches that as well, because it's such a powerful practice, and you really embody that and share it.
I hope that it inspires you, because that's the goal. And if you're listening, like, yeah, go and start simple, but just like develop a cooking practice. And if you want to learn more, reach out to me on Twitter, and I'm happy to chat. But it will bring a ton of value to your life. I can guarantee that if you invest the time to learn how to cook and start doing it regularly.